There's a lot of focus on climate policy again of late. Many on the Green left are using the pandemic now as a reason or an excuse to spend more on renewable energy. Just where the connection is on that, I don't really know. It looks more like political opportunism to me. But Scott Morrison was off spruiking the Snowy Hydro 2.0 scheme today, which is a Malcolm Turnbull hangover and plays into this debate. It's a big worry, actually, Snowy Hydro 2.0 costing up to or beyond $10 billion without generating any extra energy. It'll just store renewable energy for when we need it most. Anyway, amid all this madness, I thought I would share with you a ray of light, a ray of hope. It comes in the form of a lifelong climate activist coming to grips with reality and calling out the blatant alarmism that has come to dominate the environmental debate around the world. Michael Shellenberger is his name. He's lobbied on climate action and environmental causes around the world for decades. And today he's releasing a new book called Apocalypse Never: Why Environmental Alarmism Hurts Us All. Now, I'll show you some of what he's got to say in a moment. But just to give you a sense of how practical and sensible he is, I want to show you what he had to say about the energy debate in a talk a year ago. This too is very relevant to us and makes enormous sense to anyone who wants to reduce carbon dioxide emissions but keep affordable and reliable power.
You might think, well, dealing with climate change is just going to require that we all pay more for energy. That's what I used to think. But consider the case of France. France actually gets twice as much of its electricity from clean, zero-emission sources than does Germany. And yet France pays half as much, almost half as much for its electricity. How can that be? Well, you might have already anticipated the answer. France gets most of its electricity from nuclear power, about 75% in total. And nuclear just ends up being a lot more reliable, generating power 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, for about 90% of the year.
OK, just practical, non-ideological facts and common sense there. But Shellenberger has been increasingly concerned about the Green movement, and releasing his new book, he said, "On behalf of environmentalists everywhere, I would like to formally apologise for the climate scare we created over the last 30 years. Climate change is happening. It's just not the end of the world. It's not even our most serious environmental problem." Hallelujah. That's a point of view I think we can all deal with. That's the sort of factual basis and rational, calm tone we need to hear more of. There's no doubt practical environmentalism has been overtaken and drowned out by the global warming alarmism of the past decade or so. So Shellenberger's confession, if you like, and his reversion to the cold, hard facts is most welcome. Let me share a list he has made. Some of this is especially relevant to Australia. He says, here are some facts that few people know. Humans are not causing a sixth mass extinction. The Amazon is not the lungs of the world. Climate change is not making natural disasters worse. Fires have declined 25% around the world since 2003. The amount of land we use for meat, humankind's biggest use of land, has declined by an area nearly as large as Alaska. The build-up of wood fuel and more houses near forests, not climate change, explain why there are more and more dangerous fires in Australia and California. Carbon emissions are declining in most rich nations and have been declining in Britain, Germany and France since the mid-1970s. The Netherlands became rich, not poor, while adapting to life below sea level. We produce 25% more food now than we need, and food surpluses will continue to rise as the world gets hotter. Habitat loss and the direct killing of wild animals are bigger threats to species than climate change. Wood fuel is far worse for people and wildlife than fossil fuels. Preventing future pandemics requires more, not less, industrial agriculture. What a list. And of course his book will go into all the detail behind this. But as someone who's read a lot across these issues for decades and interviewed dozens of experts over that time, all those statements ring true. Just don't expect to hear much about this from our politicians or our media.